All right, perfect. So just out of respect for all your time, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all very much for your time over the course of the next hour as we discuss the 2023 Clean Farms Sales Survey, where we'll be going through the reporting process for your organization's 2022 sales. As always, we like to start with some housekeeping items. So first things first, know that this webinar will be recorded. So if you have to sign off at any point or come and go, we'll definitely distribute the recording as well as the webinar slides when we wrap up the meeting today. We will be stopping periodically throughout the webinar for Q&A, so feel free to plunk your questions into the chat or into the Q&A function on Zoom, and we'll get to them at 3 sections throughout the presentation. If at any point when you're going through the sales reporting process, you think it might be really helpful to have that one-on-one contact with Clean Farm staff, we do invite you this year just to connect with Assad directly if you needed a walkthrough on how to actually submit the sales survey when you have your data in front of you. So Assad's email will be listed at the end of the presentation, so be sure to write that down and contact Assad if you have any further questions after the webinar today. Just a quick overview of the agenda. As always, we'll do an overview of Clean Farms' financing model and how the levies that your organization reports are the fundamental importance to Clean Farms and how we offer these stewardship programs to our stakeholders. We'll be going into the 2023 levies for each material type and highlighting some changes that you might have seen over the course of the last year. New this year, we wanted to reconnect with the impact that each of you and your member organizations are making on sustainability in Canadian agriculture. So we will discuss briefly the impacts that you're individually contributing to. We'll then jump into an overview of the sales survey system, being sure to be mindful of your time while still highlighting some key information that we'd like you to have fresh in your memory going forward to the 2023 reporting. And then lastly, we'll finish off with common reporting questions and then open the line to new questions that you might have. I should say, my name is Corey Crawford, and I'm Manager of Sustainability and Performance here at Clean Farms. And how that relates to the sales survey system I'm always trying to find ways to improve the online reporting process and our digital capabilities in general. So if you find that there's a bug in the system or there's something that could be tweaked to make it a more user-friendly experience for you, please don't hesitate to contact me directly, and we're constantly evolving the system to keep up with industry demands and improvements in technology. And of course, I'm joined here by Assad Mahmood, our Director of Finance. So with that, over to you, Assad.
Thank you, Corey, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you once again for taking the time on top of the week here to join in to the webinar here. I do apologize in advance for my voice here. I'm a little bit under weather, but I'll be able to, yeah, if you see me coughing, so apologies in advance. Okay, we're going to turn it back to the slides. I'm just going to see if you guys can see the slides. Okay. Corey, sorry, give me a thumbs up once the slides are good.
I don't see them quite yet.
Okay.
I don't see them yet, Assad. Let me try sharing my screen and see if that will work.
Sure. Okay. Okay, perfect. I can see the slides if you, okay.
Sorry, don't mind my messy desktop here, which I'm trying to share. Okay. Can you see that, Asad?
Yeah, thank you, Corey.
Perfect.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that, everyone.
Yeah, no, thank you. So if you would go to, yeah, perfect. So what Corey sort of described the agenda we'll be going through today. So essentially, what my role at Clean Farms and Corey's role, we will work really closely together. But in terms of the overall levies, we'll be going briefly through the levies for this year pertaining to the sales last year. Just before we go into that, our budget process works essentially. The levies are put together last year. The budget goes to our board. Prior to our board, it also goes to our Audit and Finance Committee. So every year, our budget is now approved by our Audit and Finance Committee, followed by our board, essentially for the next year. So all of the levies you would see here have been approved by our board. You would have also received a notification in the fall of last year in terms of the new levies for 2023. So essentially, why there are levies in terms of the containers or bags or fertilizer bags. And so typically what happens is a member company like yourself, a manufacturer or distributor, they sell containers or bags to farmers via retailers in most cases. There are full containers and full bags. Essentially, it can be a pesticide or fertilizer. Once the farmer has used the product, they bring back the empty containers or bags to the retailers. Essentially, that's where like the retailer and the farmer in terms of getting an empty container bag comes in. In terms of our role with our contractor, we do have our contractors essentially going out and collecting these containers and bags from these retailers. Once they have been processed, essentially they're sent to the recycler or very few cases, just in case for our disposal. The levies paid by our members, manufacturers to Clean Farms essentially help us to pay the cost to the contractor to manage this waste, essentially. The material in this case here, let's say if it's a 10-liter jug, the high density polyethylene plastic we get, the shredded plastic, also has a revenue value for us. So essentially that also flows back to the Clean Farms, and our members pay the net cost to Clean Farms to manage the overall program in this case here. So essentially the supply chain in our case works from our members to retailers to farmers, and then the farmers bringing back the empties. Essentially then our contractors going to pick those up, and then that material being processed and sent to our recycling facility, and essentially that's where we get our revenue from our customers back to. Okay, next slide, please. How we calculate the levies for any of the programs, we take all costs essentially to manage that waste stream. Let's say if it's a container program, we'll take the contractor costs, we will take the communications or any other sort of the non-direct program costs we would be incurring to manage that program. And then we also take our administration cost to manage that program, less revenue from sale of that plastic. Essentially, those are the net costs for that program. We split those costs over the estimated number of units into the market, and that's essentially how we get to the levy per unit for that program. Let's say in case of a under 23-liter container program, our estimated cost, essentially net cost for 2023 is $6.6 million. We split that over for our estimated sales volume. Let's say if it's 10 million units into the market in 2022, reported in 2023. So in this case, the levy is 59 cents because the program is operating in a deficit. But if we were to take the cost and split it over the estimated unit, then the levy would be 0.66 cents for a 10-liter jug. Okay, what the sales survey is for, it determines the total number of units put into the market. Sales are to be reported for the calendar year, January 1st to December 31st for the previous year. And again, in 2023, you will be reporting these sales from January 1st of 2022 to December 31st, 2022. It helps us fairly attribute each member's levies. Members only pay for the units that they are responsible for. It allows us to report the recovery rate for each of the programs. In cases where it is actually, in some cases, some provinces, it is mandatory. Sorry. Our 2023 budget is $19.6 million, essentially. That includes all the programs, container program, our bulk container program, our bags program, our obsolete pesticide programs, our grain bag and twine program, and essentially we also have some of the pilot programs operating out west as well as out east as well. Our current total reserve fund is close to $4.5 million. Essentially, as a Clean Farms organization, standard practice is to have the reserves of 50% to 150%. So the total operating cost, we're close to the bottom end of the normal operating reserves. Our reserve fund normally in any stewardship program has three purposes. In the event of a complete wind down of a program or operations, that's where the reserve fund kicks in to fund that operation, essentially. We also use this essentially for operating for cash flow in the first 6 months of each year. There's always a lag in terms of when the member sales survey is reported and then invoiced. That's where this reserve fund helps us to continue operating the programs. It also actually helps us to balancing surplus or deficits from one year to another year. A surplus at the end of year could result in lower levies. This is balanced against the overall reserve we require to operate. Invoices are split in two tranches, as most of you have already seen. Once the sales data has been submitted, we send out a first tranche of the invoice, and then the second invoice is sent out. The second and final invoice for that year is sent out in August. Okay. Getting into the 2023 levies. Again, if you have any questions, to let us know. But essentially, we'll be looking at briefly going through the levies for 2023. Our obsolete pesticide levies, essentially for pesticide container, all sizes under 23 liter. It's 9.1 cents per 10 liter, and I do apologize for error here. It's actually 9.1 cents for anything for 1.1 to 23 liters, and then essentially 0.0091 for anything under 1 liter. When it comes to pesticide bags, it's 0.0091 for under 1 kilogram and 0.091 for 1 to 30 kilogram size pesticide bags. Any bags, pesticide bags over 30 kilos, that's 9.1 cents per 10 kilos, similar to the way our bulk container program works. Okay, our bags program essentially, so this year will be the first year where members will be paying the levies for Western Canadian sales. We do have a full program in place, essentially in Western Canada now. Any bag, seed, or pesticide less than 30 kilos has a 27 cents levy applied to seed and pesticide bags both. Pesticide bags, as you've seen in the last slide, it does have a levy of obsolete seed bags. Levy of obsolete pesticide. Okay. Any bag size from 31 to 500 kilos, the levy is 1.40. There are no changes in the bags program levies. Our seed or pesticide total essentially from 501 to 1,000 kilogram, it's 2.81 bag levy. fertilizer bag levy only applies to the products sold in Quebec, and that levy is at $2.20. Okay. Again, for this year, in 2023, we will be asking our members are required now to report the Western Canadian bags sales data for 2022, as well as the levies will be applied to that data input. Okay, our levies were under 23-liter container program. 59 cents for anything from 1.1 to 23 liters. Sorry about that. And the seed treatment container, sorry. 95 cents for anything under 23 liters. Okay. Our bulk container program has two separate levies, one for non-seed treatment bulk containers and the other one is for seed treatment bulk containers. Non-seed treatment bulk containers levies are slightly lower than the seed treatment bulk containers due to the nature of these containers and then the way they are processed. Any non-seed treatment bulk container between 23 to 225 liter, the levy is 20.43. And the levy for 226 to 550 liter is 29.69, and any bulk tote over 550 liter levy is 43.61. Okay, seed treatment bulk container 30.65 for 23 to 225 liter, 44.54 for 226 to 550 liter. And over 550 liter, 55.14. There are no changes in bulk container program levies for both essentially non-seed treatment and seed treatment program. Okay.
I saw that there were a couple of questions that came into the chat about the levies. So if you wouldn't mind speaking to those, if you're able to see the text.
Yeah, sorry, give me 1 second here. Slide 10. Yes, yeah, so sorry, that's the one where there is a typo essentially for obsolete levies, and they're supposed to be 9.1. Okay, so any other questions, Corey, we have before I turn it back to you?
I think we are good to keep going. Thanks, Assad.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, it's rare that we have the opportunity to have our dear members on the line. So I thought I'd use this opportunity to really highlight the impact that yourselves and your organizations have on Clean Farms and Canada's agricultural community. Many of you have been with Clean Farms since our program's inception 30 some years ago, and other are fairly new to the Clean Farms suite of programs. So I thought it'd be interesting to just do a quick overview on how we've evolved over the course of those years. We have started to be very deliberate in this sort of data that we collect, not only our collection and our sales data, but our membership information as well. So back in 2006, Clean Farms had 25 members that helped to fund our stewardship programs. And over the course of the next 15 or so years, we did see our membership blossom to over 82 members that we have at this point in time. And this number is expected to grow and grow as various agricultural products are becoming regulated, especially within the province of Quebec. And when we do member surveys, what we found is that over 70% of our members who represent the key members of the crop input, the seed, the animal health industries, they do so voluntarily. So not because there is provincial regulation in place that requires participation in these programs, but essentially because it is the right thing to do for customers and for agriculture across Canada. The 57% of members that were surveyed cited that they do so voluntarily. Um, in addition to that, 15% of our members signed on voluntarily, but because they were being encouraged by their supply chain to do so. So whether it was customers, whether it was their retail locations, they did so because their immediate stakeholders asked them of it. There is about 1/5 or 21% of members have cited that they joined Clean Farms to meet their regulatory requirements, and they've used it as a compliance mechanism as opposed to starting from scratch and creating a recycling and stewardship program direct to their customers and their product lines. And then the other 7% of members have done so for a variety of reasons. And we always are looking to get as much feedback as possible from you so we can always enhance the services that we offer, the number and types of materials that we collect, and to make sure that you're receiving the tools that you need to help communicate these very important services that you're offering your customers free of charge. So if there's anything that your communications department or your regulatory department or the executive team, anyone within your organization, if there's something that we can do to help highlight the great work that you're doing, let us know, and we are more than happy to get the wheels in motion to provide that. So the Clean Farms organization has a tremendous story to tell. And that story just keeps evolving as we sort of walk through this new landscape of recycling and waste management becoming top of mind, not only for the agriculture community, but for Canadians in general. They just really want to make sure that the plastic pollution problem is contained and that this material is being responsibly managed. And of course, that's where we come in. And when we're managing our performance or the success of Clean Farms as an organization, there's really two lenses that we measure our success. And those two lenses are, one, the volume of material that we get back each year. Essentially, our goal is to increase that figure year over year. But we know that there is more nuance to the market than that. So our most important measure of success is the recovery rate. So that's essentially the percentage of material that's sold to market each year that Clean Farms gets back for recycling. Our goal, of course, is to get 100% of the material back so that it's recycled or recovered. And what we found is that as programs mature, our collection rate steadily increases. If we're looking at this table here, our flagship and our most mature program is for pesticide and fertilizer containers up to 23 liters. Since the Clean Farms inception, we've collected almost 150 million jugs for recycling. And if we're looking at the recovery rate, that equates to over 3/4 of all of the jugs that are sold into Canada, we get back for recycling, which is an absolutely tremendous recovery rate. And it's actually quite rare to see a rate so high in any stewardship program. So this is kudos to you, it's kudos to your customers and to the industry in general for making sure these jugs are recycled. If we're looking next at non-deposit drums and totes, we've collected almost 320,000 drums and totes for recycling since we started offering this program. This is a fairly new program. We offered it for the first time in 2016 and have hit the ground running since. At this point, we collect 54% of all of the drums and totes that are sold into the Canadian market. Drums and totes, we have heard that they can be reused for other purposes. So that does contribute to the lower collection rate than we see for jugs. But no matter when growers are ready to recycle these containers, we're willing to take them back. So whether it's a couple years after they're sold or that same term, the Clean Farms program exists to make sure that they do have that opportunity. If we're looking at seed, pesticide, and inoculant and fertilizer bags and tote bags, we've collected 2.5 million kilograms worth of these bags since the program began. This program started in Eastern Canada, where it's been a permanent program for many years. In Western Canada, we've operated the program as a pilot, so we can essentially work out any kinks. So this year, when members start actually providing the levy for the program in Western Canada, we can hit the ground running. So for the bag program, we do collect 38% of all of the bags that are sold to market. If we're looking at our grain bag program, we've collected 9.5 million kilograms of grain bags since the recycling program began a few years ago, which equates to about 64% of bags that are sold. And I will add, when we're calculating our annual levies, we do take these recovery rates into calculation. So members are not paying levy on containers that aren't returned. So we make sure that you're not overpaying for what's sold. And as the percentage that's returned for recovery increases each year, we adjust our budget calculation accordingly to make sure that it's as fair as possible for all of our members. Since the Clean Farms program began, we've collected nearly 4 million kilograms of unwanted or obsolete pesticides and 58,000 kilograms of livestock or equine meds. These materials, of course, they can't be recycled, so they're sent for high temperature incineration to make sure that there's no environmental degradation involved when growers are getting rid of these old products. And one of our new programs is for twine and egg film. We run a variety of programs across Canada. Of course, your members and your clients aren't reporting on this in the sales survey, but it's definitely worth noting that we've collected 861,000 kilograms of egg, film, and twine through our pilot programs since we began offering them. And one really key point to note as well is that we don't cross-subsidize our recycling or recovery programs. So when you're paying the levy on the jugs or the containers or the bags, it's unique to that program. And any pilots that we offer, we do seek external funding for. So one point that's actually pretty interesting is what becomes what. So the global agriculture industry has very strict requirements on what crop input containers can be recycled into. These are set by CropLife International and of course bolstered by the Canadian ag industry in general. So we do have to very closely assess every recycler that we work with and have full traceability, so we know that all of the material that Clean Farms collects, when it's going through that recycler facility, we know exactly where it ends up and what products that it's recycled into. And those products have been defined by the industry. So wherever possible, it is an on-farm use and always low human contact. So for the pesticide and fertilizer jugs, the vast majority are recycled into drain tile or irrigation pipe. But we also see agricultural fence posts, plastic lumber, guardrails, and parking lot curb stops. For drums and totes, we do see that tile drainage, of course, as well as composite dimensional lumber and construction and plastic pallets. For the seed, pesticide, and inoculant bags, right now, the vast majority of the bags are used for waste to energy. So when possible, we always move up that 4R hierarchy. So we recycle when we can. When recycling isn't available, we'll send it to recovery. And that recovery is used as power for cement kilns or district heating. And as the recycling markets evolve, we always try to get it recycled when we can. The Small bags, the seed and pesticide bags, they do need to go to waste to energy, but we are working with recyclers now for the super sacks or the FIBC bags to be recycled. And those are recycled into lumber wrap. For the unwanted pesticides and livestock meds, these can't be recycled. They can't be recovered. So what we do is we send them for high temperature incineration. And of course, why are we doing all this? We're doing it because it's the right thing to do for the environment. And one of the key metrics that citizens in general find meaningful is the equivalent to carbon dioxide emission savings. So we've commissioned life cycle analysis that determined that, of course, it is more environmentally impactful for this plastic to be recycled and to use that recycled content when manufacturing new products, as opposed to using virgin plastic, which is of course created from oil, and there's the whole process to convert that oil into plastic. So if we're looking at 2021 alone, if we're looking at all of the jugs, the drums, the totes, and the bags we've collected across Canada, we can confidently say that participation in the Clean Farms program have prevented almost 7,500 tons or 7.5 million kilos of CO2 from being emitted into the atmosphere. When we pull that into a more digestible way of looking at it, that's the equivalent of 1,600 cars off the road, of over 3 million liters of gasoline, of 123,000 acres of forest sequestering carbon for a year, or growing 281,000 tree seedlings for 10 years, or almost 900 households' annual energy use. So the more that we collect, the bigger this environmental impact will have year over year. If this is something that you hear and you think would speak to someone within your organization, let me know and we can create this same sort of statistics that are unique to your organization's impact. Okay, so let's jump into the sales survey module. Assad, were there any questions that came in on member impact in the last few minutes?
Yeah, there are two questions. I can take the first one and then I'll let you speak to the second one. So one of the questions is essentially for our deficit program we have for the small container. So for that, basically what we are doing is we are taking our proposals back to our board, and essentially one of the reasons why the cost for the small container program has been increasing, as Corey said, more members only pay for what we collect. We are collecting now roughly 77 to 78% from 65% on average 4 years ago. So the levies historically has not reflected that increase in the cost due to the volume we are collecting more. And that's why we are essentially seeing a deficit for that program. Okay. And the second question, Corey, is for our non-deposit bulk container program at a recovery rate of 54%. So essentially, if there is anything from the growers' end not to recycle them more, or probably if you can just speak to a little bit more about 54% versus maybe 77%.
Perfect. So I think that the main reason why the recovery rate is lower is because the program is relatively new. So, growers are still finding out about it. But then the next key reason is because there is that reuse aspect. We actually have the recovery rate broken down by the three sizes. The three sizes being 24 to 225 liters, 226 to 550 liters, and 550 liters plus. And we actually find the recovery rate of the smaller size is higher because there isn't that reuse model. But what we've heard is for some of the cage totes especially, they have been reused. And then what we're predicting is growers can only hold on to so many drums and totes, at which point then our recovery rate will increase, as growers don't want to have more than they need on farm. Maybe next year what I'll do is I'll have a historic collection rate so we can see how the recovery rates increase over time. So as you know, if we're looking at a 30-year program versus an 8-year program, we'll see those projected increases in collection rates. But if you think of any other questions, pop them in the chat. I am just going to keep going on the sales survey module. First things first, what's different from last year? If you've submitted the sales survey for your organization for a few years, it should be a fairly well-oiled machine. But as I mentioned, we're always looking for ways to improve the system, not only from the user experience, but from the data that we're able to extract and how we can use that data to benefit the industry in general. So system improvements, there are a few key pieces that you'll notice this year. The first is we have now member-specific messaging. So last year, when you signed on, there was sort of a static welcome message. But now this year, you'll see information specific to your organization, a message that we want to let you know, something to be aware of. So just be sure to look at this section now when you log on in, I believe tomorrow or whenever you log in to submit your sales. We have our member-specific messaging in the system now, as well as packaging-specific messaging. So we always keep track of the types of questions that we get every year, and we want to make sure that everyone is receiving as much helpful information as possible. So under each material type now, for some, you might see a little explanation, which is going to be set in this orange box that you see here now, just helpful tools and tips for when you're reporting. One huge improvement that we've made for 2023 is the development of a sales survey portal en français. I'm sorry, I don't have a sample to show you there now. We are still working with our translator to make sure all looks tickety-boo, but we will be launching the French sales survey at some point this year. So thank you for all of our French members for bearing with us in English over this last few reporting systems. And just taking a step back to what changed in 2022 that you'll still see again this year. We do have multi-factor authentication for all logins. Now, when you're reporting non-deposit bulk containers, there is a line to indicate whether they went to egg retailers or seed treatment facilities. If you do sell to both, please be sure to separate out those lines so we can better track the sale of those two types. Now we ask members to provide the names of deposit containers that are sold to market. So you don't pay levies on deposit containers. You do pay levies on non-deposit containers. And the container names that you provide go to populate our online system, our operational system. So when retailers submit a pickup request, they see a list of exactly what Clean Farms can take. But now they'll also see a list of exactly what Clean Farms doesn't take. That's a deposit container. So it just helps them to know exactly who to reach out for depending on what they have. So it's clearer for the retailers that are submitting a pickup. We do ask that you provide a digital signature to confirm that the sales survey is accurate and complete. And doesn't necessarily apply to this group, but we do have twine sales reporting now in certain provinces. Okay, so just giving a quick refresher on how to use the system. Go to salessurvey.cleanfarms.ca or go to cleanfarms.ca and find the link for sales survey at the top. You'll enter your username, password, and business ID into the fields that look like this. This has been sent to you from Assad's email address, but if you've lost it, just connect with him and he can resend. Once you enter those 3 fields, hit login, and that will prompt you to then enter your authorization code. So if you look in this next screen, you'll see the email address that we've used to send your 2-factor authentication to, or your cell phone number. So you'll either get an email or a text or both This is what the email code looks like. This is what the text code look like. They're the same number. Just copy that verification code and plunk it into this field here and hit submit, and then you're in the system. First things first is, once you're logged on, just indicate if you're an AWSA member. We get this question every year. If you select yes, it does not automatically send the reporting totals to AWSA. You will need to track down the total number that you'll provide to AWSA externally. So we are partners with AWSA, but we're completely separate organizations, and our sales reporting systems don't overlap. So you'll just simply select which materials you sell. This will feed directly into where you can report. So click what you do sell to market, unclick what you don't sell, and you won't see the opportunity to report on it. Once it looks good, hit I have verified. If you realize you made a mistake on your dashboard, you can always select container types here, and then it'll bring up this page again. So you can click whatever you might have missed. And if you're good to go, just hit submit sales survey, and that will bring you to these next pages. General formatting, we have the main material categories along the left-hand side. You click to expand. When you click to expand, you see all these sub sizes. You can enter your data based on each material, and you can hit add one more row. It'll save this row and add another. If you made a mistake, you can use the trash icon and it'll clear out that whole row there. But otherwise, as you go, keep hitting this add one more row, populating the data. And once it looks good, hit save table. Once you've hit save table, you'll see that check mark in green to indicate that you've entered data there and all looks well. And that will then allow you to move on to the next sub material type and rinse and repeat as you go through and enter your sales data. At any point, you can hit summary and it will bring you to a page that has all of these material types and what you've entered. So you can just really quickly review to make sure that it all looks well. So just a little bit of tips for each section. So for fertilizer bags, you only have to report what was sold into Quebec. This was at the request of the Quebec market that we offer a program for fertilizer bags. We only collect fertilizer bags in Quebec. That's why you only report them there. For pesticide and seed bags, you'll see it broken down by Western versus Eastern Canada. Last year, we just had you report the numbers of Western Canada sales, but there were no levies associated with it. Whereas Eastern Canada, you reported the sales and provided the levies. This year, Canada-wide, the levy program works, and it's a full permanent program for seed, pesticide, and inoculant bags. It's worth noting that pesticide bags incur a bag levy as well as an obsolete levy, where the seed bags are just the bag. And here's an example of the summary that you'll see. It'll be broken down: seed bags in one section, fertilizer bags in another, and pesticide bags in another. You'll see the total number of units. You'll see the estimated weight of each bag, to give you the total weight of each bag, and then the levy broken down by the applicable types. For under 23 liter containers, very similar process. You'll enter number of units sold into Quebec, number of units sold in every other province but Quebec. It'll sum those up for you, and then you'll select the size of the jugs. Everything from 1 to 23 liters are in the same category, and then that'll give us the estimated weight that of plastic that was sold by your organization into the market. Quebec is separated out from other provinces because we are required to report on the weight sold into Quebec. Here's an example of how you'll see the jugs summary broken down by non-seed treatment, seed treatment, and fertilizer. They do have a different levy structure, so that's why we've broken them down this way. For non-deposit drums and totes, Similarly, we ask you to put the number of units sold everywhere but Quebec into Quebec, and that'll sum the total number of containers. We'll ask you to put the size, which is this size category is used to pull the obsolete levy. And then what we'll get you to do is select the container type. So once you select container type, you'll get this pop-up. Within the category, for example, 25 liters to 225 liters, you'll see all of the different commonly sold sizes. For example, we've got a 115-liter drum, a 1-piece, 3-piece, or that 208-liter drum. The reason we ask for this information is because these containers, though the volume of liquid they hold can be the same, it can be 115, 120, the actual weight of that plastic of the container itself differs. So when we're looking at the weight of plastic that we get back, we always have to look at the weight of plastic that was sold. And this helps us to make sure that we're using as accurate numbers as possible. So you click the size, you hit save, and you'll carry on to entering if it was sold to a dealer or to a seed treatment facility. And once you've entered the number of units of drums and totes sold, you will see a pop-up to identify which products are being sold in those categories. The reason that we're doing this for drums and totes, but not for jugs, is because the transportation requirements on the back end are different. For drums and totes, we are required to provide our carriers with a bill of lading that lists out all of the products, the names, the manufacturers, the sizes, and the quantity that's on that truck, so they can fulfill their transportation of dangerous goods requirements. So when you populate the new product types and sizes in the system, it speaks with our other system, so our paperwork can be met by the retailers very efficiently. So say if you're looking at this list here and you see, oh, there's a new product that isn't shown on the list, simply select add missing product, search by the PCP number provided by Health Canada. If there isn't a PCP number, try the CFIA number if it's a fertilizer product. If you don't have either, there's any unique identifying code, enter that. If not, we can have the system auto-generate any number. The key here is just that we have a unique number to each product and size that's in the system. Say if you have a new size of an existing product, simply select add the same product with a different size and populate the material. And then once the list looks correct, simply tick which products are still in distribution and which are not. And it helps us keep track of what we can expect to see year over year. Okay, so here we're adding a new size, the same product, new size, hit add, and you'll find the system pretty intuitively this way. But if you have any questions on new products, please, of course, don't hesitate. So once you add the new products, they'll automatically be in the list. But if you made a mistake, don't be shy to hit the trash icon to delete and start again. What you'll see here when you're reporting your drums and totes, there's the green check mark that you see for everything else. If you've reported the numbers, you'll see a green check mark. If you haven't yet selected what products are sold this year, the secondary check mark will be gold. Once you've done the selection of what you're selling to market, then it'll turn to green and you know that you're good to carry on. If you're reporting drums and totes, you might get this pop up just to verify the number of units are correct. So as I mentioned, we have to provide paperwork on exactly the number of units of each size and material that we've collected. And this just helps to flag any potential errors. So let's pretend that last year, our system shows that we collected 100 drums of a certain product and size, but the reporting shows that only 10 were sold. Well, it seems like we've collected 10 times more than were sold. So we know there's some issue along the way that we have to resolve. So you have two options. You can hit go back to verify that the number sold was correct. Or if it is correct, hit ignore and go to summary page. You can continue on with your sales reporting as normal, but it'll just flag a note for us on the back end to follow up for more information. And then deposit bulk containers. So deposit bulk containers, you don't pay the levy on the container, just on the obsolete product. So we do ask again that you report the names of all the deposit containers sold, so we can have a list of what we don't accept. And if we don't accept it, we can point the retailer in the direction of who does. It just helps make it easier for them. And then once you've gone through material by material, hit summary, you see your summary page, just review that all the information that entered was correct. Hit save and close if you want to come back later. But if it's good to go, hit submit final data. That will go to Assad. Can't make any changes afterwards without contacting him. So once you hit that submit button, there is a pop-up where you review the agreement information. And then if all looks well, hit yes, agree at the bottom, type your name of whoever completed that data input, and then just do hold down your clicker to do your signature. And then at any point you want to go back, you can click here to see the pending surveys, or if you want to see the completed sales surveys, hit the sales survey icon at the side. You'll see an option for pending, you'll see an option for complete. And then once you've submitted it, it'll be received by Assad. Assad will prepare the invoices right away. The first invoice will be distributed once a sales survey is submitted. The second invoice will be distributed 6 months later. And then your organization will remit payment to Cleanfarms. And that is it from a sales reporting software. If you have any questions, let us know. We're happy to walk you through this whole process one by one. But I did see another question come through the chat, Assad, if you don't mind pulling that up.
I think, yeah, we've got it covered, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So
and thank you, Corey. And just one quick note on AWSA for our members who would have opted into basically Cleanfarms sharing the data with CropLife Canada for AWSA. So if you have selected yes and last year, essentially that's what we did. So this year, once the data has been submitted, we will be sharing that number with CropLife Canada directly. Okay. So moving on to some of these, I see we have got a few minutes left in this, so I'll try to wrap this up. Essentially, some of the common reporting questions we get from some of our members. And again, if you do need that one-on-one sort of a walkthrough or any questions you have, which are particular to the data you're entering, feel free to send out a note to myself and or Corey as well. Okay, so this one is how do you report combo packs where containers inside of inside of the same size? Let's say there are two 10-liter containers in a box. So this should be reported as two 10-liter containers and not as one 20-liter container. So two separate 10-liter containers in this case here. Okay. When there are different sizes, if there are 3 containers in one box, for example, 2 8-liter containers and one 9-liter container in a box, so this should be reported as 2 8-liters and one 9-liter and not as one 25-liter container. Okay, how to report the sale of 1,000, let's say, combo boxes with 2 8-liter containers and one 9-liter container in a box. This should be reported as 2 times 1,000 8-liter containers and 1 times 1,000 9-liter containers, and not as 1,000 times 25-liter containers. So technically 2,000 into 8 and 1,000 into 9-liter containers in this case here. Okay, do I report additives? Yes, all additives such as adjuvants and surfactants must be reported. This additives sales should be reported under the pesticide containers category in the appropriate sizing group. Okay, how do I report sales of true bulk product? For example, 5 loads of 45,000 liter rail tankers, or essentially, how do you report that? So true bulk sales should be reported under the other category with the total size and number of loads, for example, 5 into 45,000 liters. This product only incurs the obsolete levy calculated in 10-liter equivalent packages. Do I report bulk business-to-business sales? Yes, report all bulk business-to-business sales unless you have a separate agreement or arrangement to manage these containers. Okay, how do I report multi-trip containers? For example, of 450-liter containers filled 4 times. As Corey had mentioned, essentially our members only pay obsolete levy on the deposit containers. In this case here, so multi-trip container sales should be reported under the bulk deposit category with the total size and number of fills sold, for example, 4 into 450-liter containers. This product only incurs obsolete levy calculated in 10-liter equivalent packages. Okay, do I report the sales of fertilizer? Yes, fertilizer included in the fertilizer container program includes containers that contain or originally contained liquid registered products as defined under the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's Fertilizer Act, including fertilizers, micronutrients, supplements, and low analysis farm fertilizer, or liquid fertilizer product with the nutrient analysis claim or guarantee. If you're not sure about a certain product, again, please feel free to send out a note to us directly. Where do I report dye containers? Dye containers should be reported with seed treatment containers. Similar to seed treatment containers, dye containers are heavily stained and cannot be recycled along with non-seed treatment pesticide and fertilizer containers. It's critical that these gets reported under a seed treatment in a separate category. One, there is a separate levy at the same time in terms of for tracking purposes too. That helps us to track them separately. How do I report solio packs? Report solio packs under the other category. So they're reported in the system based on the number of boxes sold into the market. This product only incurs the obsolete levy calculated in 10-liter equivalent packages. Okay, so this sums up the session we have for here today. I'll turn it back to you, Corey, for any final closing comments.
Yeah, so here are emails. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are always here to help. Otherwise, happy reporting and congratulations for making it through a 100 slide PowerPoint deck. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. And thank you, everyone, once again. Thank you.